For Parker, Schnabel gold mining has always been about taking risks, but this season at Dominion Creek those risks haven't been paying off the way he had hoped. Last year, Dominion Creek delivered big gold, allowing Parker to set his sights on an ambitious 10,000-ounce season this year. However, reality has been far less kind. 2/3 of the way through the season, Parker's operation has managed to pull in just under 3,000 ounces, a number that puts way behind schedule. With the season rapidly slipping away, Parker knows he needs a game-changing move to turn things around. A bold, high-stakes gamble, buying another mining company for $2.5 million. The deal came with the Sulphur Creek claim, a property with ground already stripped and ready to mine. In theory, it was the perfect way to speed up gold recovery, but in mining, theory doesn't always match reality. Parker's decision to buy Sulphur Creek wasn't an easy one. Spending millions while already struggling to hit his goal was a huge financial risk, but with the price of gold high, he reasoned that keeping the wash plants running at full capacity would be the best way to make up for lost time. I felt like it needed to be done, Parker admitted. Unfortunately, it means taking on more debt and pouring money into the property. Some of the crew are hesitant about Sulphur Creek, but there's already a stripped pit in shallow pay dirt ready to go with a 200-yard-per-hour wash plant. We should be pulling in at least a couple of ounces an hour. Hopefully that settles everyone down, including myself, and we start seeing some solid gold coming in. With everything on the line, foreman Damon Brown and his skeleton crew were under immense pressure to get wash plant Bob running smoothly. Unlike Parker's other wash plants, Big Red and Rock Sand, Bob was new to the operation, and keeping it running required constant maintenance. But just when things seemed to be on track, disaster struck. During a routine cleanup, the wash plant suddenly shut down. Damon Brown, the foreman in charge of Sulphur Creek, stood beside the lifeless wash plant, staring at the jammed conveyor belt with frustration. This wasn't just a minor hiccup. Without Bob running, there was no sling, no gold, and no hope of catching up. Grabbing his radio, he called for help. "Bill, do you have a copy?" His voice was tight-edged with urgency. "Bill," one of Parker's mechanics responded immediately. "Yeah, go ahead." Damon wasted no time. "Would you or Justin be able to come out here? The pre-wash on Bob is jammed up." There was a pause before Bill's calm voice came through. "Okay, 10 to 4. Me and Josh will be on our way." Help was coming, but would it be too late? The mechanics arrived. Father and son mechanics Bill and Justin were the ones responsible for keeping Parker's operation moving, literally. With 3 active sites spread across 100 square miles, they were constantly bouncing from one problem to the next. When they arrived at Sulphur Creek, the first thing Justin noticed was the silence. A wash plant that wasn't running was a bad sign. If there was no water moving through the system, it meant the problem wasn't just minor, it was serious. Walking over to the plant, Justin surveyed the situation. It didn't take long to spot the trouble. The drive shaft had shifted, throwing the entire conveyor system out of alignment. Without that shaft in place, Bob couldn't do its job. "This thing's completely out of whack," he muttered, shaking his head. "A repair that turns into a nightmare." At first, the mechanics hoped it would be a quick fix. They started by pulling apart the chain system and checking for damage, but as they worked, the full extent of the problem became horrifyingly clear. Justin held up a worn-out sprocket, its edges jagged and misshapen. "These things are supposed to be symmetrical," he said, more to himself than anyone else. "This one's trashed." Then they got to the shaft itself. There was no fixing this. "There are pieces everywhere," Justin muttered as he turned the broken shaft in his hands. It was completely wrecked. Bill took a closer look, running his fingers along what should have been smooth metal. Instead, it was torn and uneven, worn down from relentless grinding. He let out a low whistle, shaking his head. "I've never seen a bearing this bad," he admitted. "I don't even know how this thing was still turning." And just like that, the quick fix became a nightmare. The shaft wasn't just damaged, it had to be replaced time is running out. Replacing a drive shaft is not a quick job, it meant. Hours of downtime. Hours. Parker couldn't afford. Justin let out a long sigh as he stared at the broken parts in front of him. They were already behind, and now they were falling even further behind. Sulphur Creek had been Parker's last-ditch effort to save the season. Instead, it was turning into another expensive problem. Every breakdown, every delay, and every wasted hour pushed Parker's 10,000-ounce dream further out of reach. And with winter closing and the clock was ticking, can't Bob be saved? For Parker, Schnabel mining is always a gamble. He had bet millions on Sulphur Creek, believing it could be the thing that saved his season. Now everything depended on whether Bob could be brought back to life. The mechanics weren't giving up. They never did. But time was slipping away, and as Parker watched from across the claim, there was one thought running through his mind. Would this gamble pay off, or had he just made the worst mistake of the season? The answer was coming soon, but first Bob needed to run wash plant. Bob had been the heart of Parker Schnabel's newest mining operation at Sulphur Creek for days. The massive machine had tirelessly churned through PID dirt, sending valuable gold-bearing gravel through its stall system. There was no time to dwell on frustrations. The season was slipping away. Parker's ambitious goal of hitting 10,000 overall was already in jeopardy. If Bob wasn't fixed fast, it wouldn't just be a setback, it could mean total failure. With urgency in the air, father and son mechanics Bill Horton and Justin Drian finally reached the site and got straight to work diagnosing the problem. A broken drive shaft had rendered the conveyor useless. Replacing it should have been a straightforward fix, or so they thought. But as they tried to install the new shaft, they hit another problem. This shaft is way too long, Justin realized, stepping back to reassess, and the keyway doesn't line up. The keyway grooves were crucial, ensuring the shaft fit securely into the bearings and sprockets. Without proper alignment, the system wouldn't function, and another day of lost gold was inevitable. Justin let out a frustrated sigh. I have no idea what our next step is. We can't go back to Parker and tell him we don't have the right parts. Silence. Then Bill spoke up. Wait a second. Can we flip the shaft and cut it down? A high-risk fix. The two mechanics took a closer look. If they flipped the shaft and cut it to size, they might be able to salvage the part, but it was a high-stakes move. If they got it wrong, the entire system could fail again. With no other options, they went to work cutting, grinding, adjusting. Finally, the moment of truth arrived. Fired up the engine, roared to life, and Bob's conveyor belt began to move. The crew watched in silence as the belt turned, then kept turning. No jams, no grinding, just smooth, uninterrupted motion. Yeah, there we go, Justin shouted, relief washing over him. Did Parker's gamble pay off? With Bob back online, the crew could finally resume processing pay dirt, but Parker's real test was still ahead. Sulphur Creek had been a massive financial risk. If the gold wasn't there, all of Parker's efforts and millions of dollars would be wasted. Getting Bob running again was a victory, but the test came with the gold weigh in. Parker had been betting big on Sulphur Creek. He needed 300 of this week to prove the investment was worth it. Anything less, and the crew would be staring down a losing season. The weigh-in began. The numbers climbed. 60 Oz, then 80 Oz. The room fell silent as the total continued rising. 120 160 240 Oz. Everyone held their breath. Then the final total appeared. 299 Oz. The crew exhaled in relief. Nearly $750,000 in gold had been pulled from the ground, just 1 shy of Parker's goal. Parker took in the numbers, then nodded. His expression was one of measured confidence. It was a slow start, he said, arms crossed, but we're warmed up now. We just have to keep it going. With Bob running smoothly again, Sulphur Creek's future was no longer in Question now, all that mattered was keeping the gold flowing.